So here's 5 foods that you will be totally shocked that are gluten-filled foods. And Dr. Wald, you brought them here for us today.
Yes.
I'm looking at this one and thinking this might be one of them.
Yeah, ice cream, almost all commercially brands of ice cream have tons of gluten.
Really?
Not good, so you have to get a brand that specifically says gluten-free.
Okay, so bag the ice cream. What about, you brought soy sauce or like sauce, seasoning sauce,
Right.
and general barbecue sauce?
Exactly. So, these are almost always are loaded with gluten unless it says gluten-free. So you have a gluten-free brand right there, so it's going to be predominantly, on the label, and that means there's nothing gluten-related. If it just says wheat-free, that doesn't mean the same as gluten-free.
Okay.
This particular brand here has got natural flavorings and something called, wheat protein. So that's obviously wheat. So this is no good for the celiac person or someone who really wants to just eliminate the gluten entirely. But that's a good one right there.
Soy sauce in general then will have gluten unless it's gluten-free.
Yep, 100%.
One of the other items you brought.
Right.
Soup.
Yeah, different kinds of soup too. It's mostly hidden in those natural flavors. The only way that someone's going to know if this food is gluten-free is they got to call up the manufacturer to find out.
Okay. What about alcohol?
Well, we have wine here. Wine's usually, gluten-free, but beer is another story because beer is usually made from barley and other types of wheat products. So it is basically gluten by definition.
Well, speaking of just the beverages in general, you really have to look for barley and malt in beverages or in those kinds of things because that has a ton of gluten in it.
Right. If you buy fruit that has that waxy covering, it might contain gluten. So just buy organic when you can. That's not sprayed with that wax.
Okay. What about rice? Brown rice here.
Gluten-free, so you're good with all kinds of rice.
Okay. Here we have some lovely chicken salad, protein. What about chicken meats and all that stuff?
Yeah, as long as it's not processed or breaded in any way, you're good to go. And you're replacing the protein with the chicken that you're losing by eliminating gluten from your diet.
Oh, okay. So you need to up your protein.
Yeah, got to do that.
Okay, perfect. So with protein, veggies, and fruits are okay, minus the waxy fruits.
Right.
What about though? I've heard like lunch meats in the bag are
no good.
Why?
They usually contain all kinds of preservatives and fillers that are usually in the gluten family. No processed and packaged lunch meats unless you get them, from health food stores.
Now these corn chips, we looked at the labels, and there's no gluten in here.
No gluten. At least it doesn't state a gluten ingredient. Unless something says gluten-free on it, you cannot be sure that it's truly gluten-free.
That's what I was going to say. This bag does not say gluten-free.
Right.
So you shouldn't eat it.
No, not if you have a gluten sensitivity. If you want to really make sure, 100% fail-safe, you have to call up the manufacturer of the product and ask them.
So if you think it's gluten-free, but it doesn't say gluten-free on it, you need to call the company.
Yes.
Okay. What about nuts and nut butters?
Nut and nut butters that are pure nut butters are generally gluten-free.
Safe. Okay.
Because nuts themselves and seeds are not gluten.
Great. Now here's another.
Yes.
It's a
faux pas that confuses a lot of people.
It does
buckwheat,
confuse a lot of people.
because the word wheat in it. There's no wheat in buckwheat.
I didn't eat it for years because I thought it was wheat.
A lot of people do that.
Because
it's like
you can
wheat
make
grass.
buckwheat pancakes that are delicious.
Yes.
What about the milks? Regular milk, almond milk, soy milk, rice milk, all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, cow milk is gluten-free, and there's almond and there's rice milk and there's soy milk, so those are not gluten. But again, unless something says gluten-free, you just don't know. This particular thing here, as we looked at this label before, it didn't indicate anything gluten-based in here, so that's probably okay. I wouldn't trust it though for the celiac patient. They have to be more strict than just the person who doesn't have celiac but's a bit gluten intolerant.
Like, you don't have to starve yourself to be gluten-free. There's a lot of flours that I use. Brown rice flour.
Yeah, that's a perfectly good gluten-free product there. That's used as a substitute, as you know, in baking and other types of cooking.
Right, so you mentioned millet.
Yep, millet's one. Any rice-based flour. There are the root vegetables like arrowroot and potato starches. Those are great for cooking and all gluten-free.
Okay, and there's also like amaranth. Is that a grain?
Yeah, amaranth is a grain too.
Quinoa?
Delicious. Quinoa is also gluten-free.
Now, obviously, pasta.
Yeah.
Big no-no.
Yeah, that's a big no-no. At least the gluten pastas, and that's your traditional type of pasta here. But the supermarkets these days, not just the health food stores, have all variety of gluten-free pastas, and some of them taste pretty good.
Really alarming and surprising,
and depressing.
Well, it is.
But it doesn't have to be. As we discussed, there's lots of food options here. There's
you just
fruits,
have to learn how to use them.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like the alternative flours, and it's like using alternative sugar. You have to figure out the texture
and the substitutions and the cooking recipes to make it just right.
Yeah, and then once you do that, you're all set.
Right, and I think you've got some recipes on the site.
It's just going to take you 5 years or so.
About 3 or 5 years.
Well, don't forget, we have 10 days of starter recipes and a diet plan that you can follow that Dr. Wald has put together. Just click the link on the screen or go to either one of our websites and you'll find it there. But if you have any more questions, certainly Dr. Wald's available for free diagnostics,
Yeah, send
right?
your questions. It's all good. I don't know about that, but I'll answer the questions for sure.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
You.